Good morning, good afternoon. It could be good evening, wherever you're joining from. We are so glad that you're here joining us for this very special time with Compassion Institute and Erika Rosenberg, supporting ourselves while we support others, creating a space for resourcing for space holders. We are so glad for this collaboration with Erika and for her time this morning. I'm going to turn it over to Compassion Institute's Program Director for Public Programs, Tori Saris, to get us started. Tori, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen. And echoing Stephen's welcome notes to everyone, wherever you're joining from and whatever time it is, we're very happy to have you here with us today. We are beyond our special guest, Dr. Erika Rosenberg, with us. Uh, we're going to be talking about supporting ourselves while we support others, resourcing for space holders. We know that so many people focus on giving back, lifting up, and caring for those around them. Spend time caring for others, it's really easy to forget or not have time to take care of yourselves. So today, Erika will talk about these challenges. She'll offer some tools for managing the terrain of making space for yourself and your own challenging emotions while you're helping others. And she'll guide some gentle practices. For those of you who don't know, Erika Rosenberg is a scientist, author, and educator who seeks to help people understand themselves and one another better, connect with one another, find peace and joy in life, and suffer less. Dr. Rosenberg's academic work focuses on the study of emotion, emotion expression, and contemplative science. Erika is co-creator of the Compassion Cultivation Training Program at Stanford with lead author Thupten Jinpa. She's a founding faculty here at Compassion Institute, and we are overjoyed to have her here today. So with that, Erika, if you want to come on and get us started, we're happy to have you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Tori. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Logan. And thanks all of you for showing up today. And I'm just going to say one quick technical thing to Tori and Logan. I turned off the website because it's pulling my internet to have that streaming while I'm doing this. And I don't want my presentation to be splotchy. So when things are in the chat field, I might ask you just to type them here for me in Zoom or paste them in. Got it? Okay. All right, welcome everybody. There's always the technical stuff, right? And we have to get that covered. And I am, I mentioned the chat field because I might ask you folks to type some things in there. If you've ever had any classes with me, and I know I have some former students who are attending here, welcome. It's always great to have you here. And I'm also very honored for whoever else has shown up. I'm very informal. I like to have exchange, and this kind of webinar format doesn't lend itself to that as much, but there will be a few times today in this very brief session where I might ask you to share a word or two in response to something that we've done together, in which case just type it in chat, and I'm going to ask Tori to like paste it here in Zoom so I can see it. Okay, so this is for you. Presumably, if you signed up for this event, that something about the title resonated with you. Maybe your work involves holding space for others, and or just anything that could support you through holding yourself through life appeals to you. So I want to honor you and recognize all of you for your hard work, the struggle of every day, and acknowledging your place in what John Kabat-Zinn so aptly calls the full catastrophe of life, all its glory and difficulties, because we're all in this together, kind of plodding along, trying to not have too much pain, have some joy, and get through it all. So welcome. It's great to be here with you. I'm going to keep this very simple. We'll do some practices together, meditations, reflections. I'll do a little talking about, where this comes from, what the problem is, and ways to navigate this challenging space of holding space for others while also having our responses to it. And then I'm going to offer you some take-home concrete tools that I hope you can make use of. And I'm sure you also have your own wonderful toolkit of resources, but this is just something to fold into it. All right, so without any further too much talking. I'd like to get us going by engaging in an opening practice together. And I'd like to invite you at this time to kind of put on the mindset of this being a little different from whatever you might normally do in a webinar. I know some of you might do a lot of meditation work and probably have practice-oriented webinars, but just for these moments, make your space a little special. Think of it as something different. And whether or not, I don't know if you have anything like this handy, but I happen to have a candle handy, and a new one, a purple one to match my hair. And I like to light a candle. There's something about this simple gesture. Whatever we can do to, in our gestures, imbue meaning, that's a practice I'll talk about later. But I'm just going to light a little candle. I got my meditation bell that might ring at some point after we do this little exercise. But do whatever you need to kind of gather your awareness inward. Taking a moment to notice how you're seated. And if you're probably in a chair in front of a device somewhere, or maybe on a couch, whatever it is, take a moment to see how you're holding your body. If you have the opportunity to have your feet flat on the floor, that's a great way to stabilize. We'll come back to that. And if you like, now close your eyes, especially since you have a screen in front of you, as an opportunity to go inward, gently closing the eyes, or bringing your gaze downward if you don't want to close your eyes. And inviting in to this inner space, into this body-mind space, a slow, deep cleansing breath. And what we mean by that is drawing the air deep, slowly into your chest and belly, opening and expanding. And you can visualize that when you do that, you're actually, because you are, making more space inside as your chest expands. And borrowing on this sensation and the imagery to tap into spaciousness, which is such an important tool to serve us in distress. Opening, and then very slowly letting go or relaxing that in-breath, taking your time to release it. Realizing that the exhale or the out-breath is just a relaxation of the in-breath. So it's a real great opportunity just to let it go. And when you do so, you let your weight just release down through your legs to your feet. If you're on a cushion, down through your knees or wherever you're in contact with the earth. Another slow, deep cleansing breath, opening, expanding, taking your time, drawing in this moment. It's where you are, it's what is right now. Feeling the space and then slowly relaxing. And if you're someone who doesn't really feel comfortable working with the breath, or it's not the best practice for you, just noticing where you're in contact with the earth and bringing your attention to that sensation of being grounded. And if you are doing the breathing, that's a great way to connect to the earth, to stabilize while opening. And letting that slow, deep breathing now relax, letting go of any effortful control to deliberately control the breath, and letting the breath do what it wants on its own. Letting the body breathe itself as it knows how to do. And maybe noticing the soft feeling of being in a breathing body, or being a body sitting here now, feet on the floor, grounded, connected to the earth that can support you. And maybe taking a moment to visit in your heart what brought you here today. What is it that you're hoping to get from this? Just noticing whatever bubbles up when you ask yourself that question. And then with that in mind and with an acknowledgement of the fact that you're here, that you sought to do this kind of self-care, extending a sense of gratitude to yourself on this journey of life, in your work. In being here now. And I'm going to gently ring a bell to bring us back. I like to announce the bell because I had one student say on Zoom that sometimes it can be abrupt to hear the bell through the microphone. So now's a good time to take a minute. I'd like to invite you to just share in the chat area a word or two that captures what your intention is to be here. I asked you to see what bubbled up, what you're hoping to get out of this. So just anything that comes to you, and I'm going to ask Tori to make it available to me in the chat field in Zoom if people chime in. I hope folks are chiming in. And anybody typing anything, Tori? No. What brings you here? Well, I'll leave that out there for you. Okay. I don't want to hold it up. But I'll share my intention. I feel it's very important. This is often something that's a typical part of spiritual practices, and always to set an intention at the beginning of a journey, of a practice. And I like to use it as a general practice for most of my endeavors in life. I find intentions don't guarantee results, but they pave the way because they help you think of what am I hoping to get out of this? Why am I here? You can think about that to carry into any interaction in life, because it kind of paves the way for where your actions will go, and it helps you make some decisions about your choices. I am worthy of compassion. I want to attend to my needs. There you go. That's a nice one. Thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna and more clarity on my own self-compassion. Very nice. Maintaining connection with CCT, inner peace, resilience. Wonderful. All these things, they're right in line, right? And so let me share my intention. And I stated a few things at the beginning. One of them is to recognize this need that we and I use the collective we in the appropriate sense, because I'm a space holder, that we as space holders sometimes are called upon in a crisis to be of help to people, whether we're explicitly called upon or we feel called upon to be there for others. And sometimes this happens when we ourselves are having our own emotional reaction to what's going on. Or if it's not an event that encompasses all of us, we might have things going on in our lives that that are challenging, and there's a lot to accommodate, or maybe we're exhausted and there's a lot going on, and suddenly we are needed to be there for others. So to recognize this need, to support you in your self-care. So what little I can offer in this brief amount of time to help shore up your self-care. So someone brought this up, what brings self-care, I'm worthy of compassion, I want to attend to my needs. To realize not only do you need to want to attend to your needs, but to realize that you have to attend to your needs, or something's going to give, because we're not infinitely resilient as much as we might strive to be. And also, to give you a break, we'll do a couple more nice little practices here, and to offer you some tools to fold into your life and practice. I'm going to end with a very practical list of tools, and we'll also make it available to you as a PDF. So that's my intention. So right, we're often called upon. And it's funny, this whole thing started, was born from when I was chatting with Stephen, after the presidential election in the United States. And sort of no matter where you were on the political spectrum, or no matter where you are, and um, everything can show up, right? No matter where you are on that, it was an emotional time. It was a big event here in this country. And the next morning I had my CCT class right after that night. I woke up not knowing what was going on, and I had my CCT class. And that was challenging because I was processing a lot and I had to be there. And then the next day I had another group I was running, and Stephen checked in with me, and I'm like, wow, when you're a space holder, making space for yourself is challenging. And so that's why he asked me to do this. And I tell you, um, holding space takes energy. And this was another place I was going to ask for chatting. And if you want to go ahead, it's a great thing to add. But if you think about um, how you feel in those times when there's a lot asked of you and you have to show up, you might have a professional obligation. That's your work. There's an appointment, there's a class, there's a meeting, there's a presentation, there's a client, there's a patient. You have to show up. What are some of the feelings that come up when it's just too much? Like, what do you feel in your body? What do you feel? What are the thoughts that come up? Are there doubts? And one of the things that can happen is we can question our ability to move ahead. So if you have anything to share there, great. I'm not going to pause too much because I want to get on to what seemed to me to be the essentials here. The bottom line, I mean, the most important thing, which has already been named, is to have kind of a solid and well-serviced sense of self-compassion. Self-compassion is the cornerstone of this. And thinking about what self-compassion is, because um, in order to define self-compassion, and to realize that it's not, most of the people here know what it is, but I don't know who showed up. So I feel it's important to say something about it. And also to say, one of the challenges that we face with self-compassion all the time is that sometimes, especially as helpers, we've been so focused on helping others that we neglect ourselves. Even if we conceptually know how important it is to take care of ourselves, we neglect ourselves. So this is a reminder. And if we look at compassion as noticing what's going on, seeing where there's suffering, and being concerned, having a concerned reaction to it, being moved by it, and wanting to extend a hand, help relieve the suffering, right? That when we make compassion that basic, that doing that toward oneself is not egotistical or narcissistic or self-indulgent, all these false, things that get in the way of us things that might have been conditioned into us to not take care of ourselves. It's very basic, noticing that there's hurt and being there, right? And probably when we were little babies, before we went through or young children, before we had a whole lifetime of conditioning of beliefs and acculturation, that sense of self-protection is actually very primitive. And we've learned a lot of things to kind of denigrate it or put it aside and not notice it. So we have to remember just to take care. It's hygiene, and there's all kinds of metaphors. One of my favorite metaphors that's used in teaching self-compassion is, all that stuff they say when you get on an airplane, if there's a loss in cabin pressure, put the mask, if you're traveling with a small child, put the mask on you first, and then the child. See, I almost blew it, right? Put it on you first and then the child. That means, like, if you're passed out, it's not going to do any good. Or like I've said to, I'm a big advocate of wearing helmets on bicycles because I have a family member who has a brain injury from from not wearing a helmet on a bicycle. And when I remember with a friend who I was trying to talk into doing it, and she would drive her son around on the bicycle to school, and he'd have a helmet on and she wouldn't. And I said, what is he going to do if you have brain damage, or you don't make it? So very, very basic. Take care of yourself. And so self-compassion is key. But I want to also make the point, I'm looking at the time because I have to make sure I do all the practices. I'm typing this in the chat field. Tori, you can do with it self-compassion. But what we also need, there's like these 3 pillars, right? And tip of the hat to Kristen Neff here, who talks about these being aspects of self-compassion, which is the self-compassion is sort of self-compassion is an aspect of self-compassion. I'm going to say these are pillars of self-care, self-compassion, mindful attention, and a sense of how we're connected, or what we might call, those of you who are familiar with our language from compassion cultivation training, embracing common humanity. And what we mean by that is captured in this, phrase, just like me. And I also like to add to this, I'm just like them, meaning we're all struggling through this thing called life. We're trying to get through. We don't want to have too much pain. We want to have a little joy. There are so many differences. It's not to ignore the fact that we have different conditions, different lives, different resources. As one person, I heard this explanation in a talk. I've heard it from a couple of people. I think it's very handy. It's not that we're all in the same boat. We're all in the same storm. Some of us are in a yacht. Some of us are in a little motorboat. Some are struggling in a rowboat, and some are treading water. Okay, so that's not to, there are different circumstances, but we all are in the same storm of being alive on planet Earth. And somehow connecting to that equalizing factor is not only important in reaching out to others that might be difficult for you to open to, but it's also important in including yourself. Just as we get reminded, we're all in this together when there's these things like natural disasters, whether it's an earthquake or a fire or a pandemic, that somehow we move from our little isolated groups into all of us on planet Earth. Never forget there's all of us on planet Earth. And that equalizing helps remember that you're as deserving of compassion and care as anybody else is. And if you don't take your oxygen mask, you can't do your job. So there's the self-care, there's the common humanity, there's the mindful attention, and that is paying attention, that the orientation of self-care can be supported by and reinforce your sense to notice when you're hurting, to put the generosity and love that you give to others back on yourself. And it's just paramount. And it's a life struggle, right? But one thing I will say is there's a great gift, one of the best gifts of cultivating self-compassion. And I say cultivating, that means you have to work on it, especially if you've built up all this culturation and experience that's made it hard for you. You got to work on it. With whether it's through meditations or other exercises or reminders, you got to service it. And the practice does change things. We know that repetition and bringing things into your life on a daily basis helps you build a habit. And that's what this is about, is building a self-care habit. So anyway, I'm just going to stop talking for a minute now. And I want to take us through a self-compassion practice, a compassion practice and a self-compassion practice. So let's take a moment again. I've been talking. So I'm going to take myself now inward, settling, and I really am inviting you to join along. I'm going to get a drink of water here. Self-care. Find your seat. That's a phrase I like to use, find your seat. So allow yourself to settle in your seat. And doing whatever works for you to kind of bring your attention inward, whether it's a few of these slow, deep, spacious breaths, letting your weight release all the way through your feet on that out breath. or maybe just connecting to the feeling of where you touch the earth, breathing into that, opening and relaxing, letting your weight settle into your chair, your seat, the ground, letting unnecessary tension relax. And then letting your breath just resume its natural way of breathing, gently noticing the feeling of breath in the body wherever you notice it. Most readily, maybe it's just a soft rhythm. Maybe it's just the belly rising and falling. Maybe it's the air entering your nose or mouth, wherever it's coming in. Just softly noticing that, and otherwise just being here. And connecting with your heart area. And first, just in terms of thinking about that as someone who supports other, all the goodness in your heart, the generosity and kindness, the very fact that you show up for this, trying to work to grow that sense of caring. And maybe inviting into this inner space, you sitting with your caring, generous heart, someone who you love or are very fond of, for whom it's easy to feel connected and for whom it's easy to care about. Could be a human, could be a pet. Whatever comes to mind right now is probably just fine for this practice. Whoever that might be, invite them into your heart space. Bring them into your mind. Try to make them palpable and real in this moment. Maybe you can imagine seeing them in front of you. If visualization isn't an easy capacity for you, maybe you can just remember what it feels like to be in their presence. Maybe there's a sense that works there, but their vibe, maybe they have a nice scent, whatever it is, something familiar to make them real. And just knowing them, knowing how you care about their ups and downs. Send them some good wishes, silently in your mind. May you be happy. May you be free from pain and suffering. May you be safe. May you have peace. Or whatever words work for you. Just sending this dear one some love. May you be happy. Your wishes for their well-being. May you be safe and free from suffering and pain. May you have peace and joy. And if there's anything that you might know where they're going through difficulty, you can, may this go away. May you have the solution to this problem. May you find ease in this difficult space. In the space of mind and heart, you can do anything. You can magically heal. You can wish them well. And using these capacities of mind that we have, that we underutilize, give this love a form. Maybe you're sending them brilliant golden light. Maybe it's a warm breeze. Maybe it's rainbow glitter. I had one participant share with me, sending them all this good stuff. May you be well, may you be happy. Maybe letting go of the phrases and just being there with this lovely image of how you're sending good wishes and embrace, kindness and warmth to this dear one. And maybe they gradually move a little bit to the background of your focus. And now experiment with welcoming yourself into this space, realizing that you're sending out this goodness, this light, letting it land on you. May I be happy and safe. May the golden light or the rainbow glitter that I'm capable of sending, may it encompass me. May I be okay. May I get through this thing. May I find peace. May I be happy. May I be well. May I find ease. Just generating the goodness of your heart, encompassing your loved one and you, letting it land on you, letting it comfort you. Those of us who work with growing compassion or cultivating compassion talk about growing our circle to be more inclusive. But don't forget, you're right in the middle of it all. You're in the middle of this glorious circle of compassion that you're sending out to others. Feel it. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. May I find peace and joy. And letting go of the phrases now. And maybe gently, when you're ready, letting go of these images, maybe thanking yourself and your loved one for showing up for this practice. May it be of benefit to you and to all beings. And if you have any reflections on that practice, please feel free to throw them into the chat field. And we'll have some time to talk shortly. But I want to talk about how important self-compassion is to the process of letting go. And one of the things about suffering, especially if you go back into the official, like the older Buddhist texts that talk about this thing that we call suffering in English, dukkha is the word. And it's really not so much about the events that happen over which we have very little control, right? There's the world. There's a very small piece of it that we can control. But the suffering is in how we relate to it and how we tend to get stuck. This stuck. And we talk about attachment, and some people get confused when they encounter some of the Buddhist psychology of attachment being a problem, because we think of attachment as comfort and whatever, but it means attachment more like glue or Velcro, right? And when we get stuck on things, there's what happens in the world, what we can do about it. And sometimes we just can't let go of this source of suffering. Maybe it's something in the world, maybe it's a thought that we keep thinking about, an anxiety we keep visiting. When we do practices that reinforce self-compassion, we are we are reinforcing, just like any kind of compassion, we're reinforcing a value. Oh, right, I don't want to suffer. Oh, right, I want to have ease. And that is helpful in the releasing of the stickiness, of letting the Velcro go, and it gives us more space, because spaciousness is key. It does, still that thing is over here. We're going to have to deal with it, but there's all this other stuff too. And there's another metaphor that we see often in meditation teaching of, you could think about um, suffering or difficult experiences as being like a bitter taste. So imagine you have like this bitter fluid and you put in a really tiny glass of water. The water is going to taste pretty bitter. But if you put that same amount of bitterness in a big vat of water that has liters and liters of water in it, it's not going to be as bitter, And so if we can open, letting go and spaciousness, I can release. I can see this, but oh yeah, I don't want to suffer, you know. Even as if it's something as mundane as getting cut off by somebody on the highway and you get really angry, it was my turn to merge, blah, blah, blah. And then you could spend the next 15 minutes perseverating over that person and that experience, or you could do it for a few and go, oh, right, I don't want to suffer. And you let it go. And it sounds like, oh, that's simple, but letting go is a simple instruction, but it's harder to do. The more you practice spaciousness, the more you reinforce that you don't want to suffer, the easier it is. And we know from research on the psychophysiology of stress that when people get this kind of self-compassion practice, they don't get as agitated and they release quicker. So it works. So anyway, that's about the self-compassion piece. And I'm realizing, wow, we're really moving along. And but I'm actually on track because I want to talk about some tools for self-care. And what I'm going to do is share with you a little handout that the Compassion Institute is going to make available to you as a PDF. And but before I do, so this is just a list of things that are ways to keep practicing for building resources for you. It's, self-compassion, they're not self-compassion practices as much. These are practices for self-care. And you can look at them in a couple different ways. Any self-care regimen that you might get involved in for, habit building for your mental health and for being able to be in this work, you can look at it in two ways. One is in terms of maintenance. So how to have a good baseline. Just like you might have an exercise regimen to keep you healthy, there are things that you can do on a regular basis to keep you healthy. Something like this practice, I'm actually didn't put a lot of explicit meditation on this list, but having a meditation practice that you do every day and visiting self-compassion as part of that is one way. So there's the maintenance way. Then there are tools that are also for what we might consider acute care. Let's say something urgently comes up. It can be before you have to go into a session or a class or be with somebody, or it could be right in the middle of it. Like sometimes you have to readjust and recalibrate in a moment before being able to be responsive to another. So I am going to share my screen, and I'm not going to have to, I just want to show you the terrain of this list, and then you can make use of it. And then we'll do a really quick closing practice before I open it up to a little Q&A. That sound good, Tori, who's I'm seeing here is the only face I'm seeing? Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And this is like I said, this is a handout, and I want you to take a look at these different categories of things. We have, like, first of all, practices for grounding, rootedness, and stabilizing. That opening practice I did where you really take some time, that's a meditation that's put here at the beginning, bringing your attention to your breath, doing deep breaths, but feeling that connectedness to the earth. Grounding is really incredibly helpful if you get agitated. And also having that as part of your regular maintenance is valuable too. Grounding in sensation, I say rubbing the hands together, noticing the warmth, connecting to a sound or a scent. This sensation is now. And, one of the reasons that we work with the breath as a convenient thing to focus on in a lot of meditation is not only is it an object to focus your attention on, but it's now. It's in this moment. And when our minds get busy and we're trying to stabilize, often we're going away from now. We're either regretting or we're catastrophizing, but we're not here. So sensation brings us here, because it's where you interact with the world. Quite literally, that's what sense, and things are hitting your nervous system from the surroundings. And so sensation is great. I can't emphasize the importance of staring out, stopping for a second, pausing. I talk about pausing and stopping. The relaxation and grounding practices really overlap a lot, but don't forget to build in, give yourself even 90 seconds of nothingness. Let's say you got 5 minutes, you got something starting, you got to go into, you're in your office or whatever, and just stop. If you have a window, look out it, and do nothing. Set your timer. And there's body scanning. I like also there's a shower grounding thing. You like if the water's hitting down you, let it like you imagine that it's like washing you clean, setting you up. The water runs off down into the earth and you become rooted like a tree. That's a nice thing. Here's some relaxation. Again, they overlap a lot with grounding. Don't forget there's so many different breath exercises. I mentioned them more explicitly under anxiety and panic and focus, but you know, deep breathing, spacious breathing, slow breathing, and taking as much time on the inhale as exhale. Physical movement on a regular basis is so important for keeping that sort of background physiological activity level. Like, let's say things like your heart rate and your blood pressure and all those things, having that more regulated and stable. It's also a great way, if you're agitated, to burn off a little steam. Even if it's as simple as let's say you can't go out on a walk, maybe you can go upstairs and do up and down, go around, walk around your kitchen like I do sometimes. Um, some things for anxiety and panic. There are all kinds of great tools. Some of you might know these. One of my favorite is box breathing. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's when you imagine in your mind the shape of a box and you take you pick a time. Let's say it's 5 seconds, 5 seconds on the in breath, and then hold it for 5 seconds. 5 seconds on the out breath. That forces you to take time on the out breath. Hold it for 5 seconds. 5 seconds on the inhale. It's a really nice practice. It's been used with people like the Navy SEALs, dealing in crisis situations. So it's a great one. Panic ice packs, if you put them on your wrists, or that can actually help engage the parasympathetic nervous system, which has a calming effect on you physiologically. Reappraising situations, which is easier once maybe it's not a source of panic. So many things here. Take a look. Spaciousness, spacious breath. I have here a breathing exercises that I've done for years. I first learned at Nyingma Institute, my home meditation center, that imbues some imagery with deep breathing to increase a sense of spaciousness. And this thing here, see this? This goes all over this whole document. Learn to say no. Know when to say when. And you need to have a sense of self-compassion to do that. Meaning it's a powerful act to know that you don't have the resources to do a certain thing, and to pause and to realize that you would be not only doing a disservice to whoever you're helping, but also a disservice to yourself. Know when to say when. And for focusing sensation, if you're panicky or destabilized, there's this great practice that's used for regulating panic. It's called the 5-4-3-2-1 practice. And it forces you to engage with the senses, like to name, brings you into where you are, like name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 you can smell, 1 you can taste, or some version of that. You can make it 3, 2, 1, whatever, but the counting and the engaging with your surroundings is very grounding and it can help you focus. Eating mindfully is incredibly delicious. So because that engages the senses, like the look of things, the texture of things, the feel of things, and the feeling of, swallowing it, all that stuff. I want to just say, before we go, before we kind of have a quick close on practice and open it to questions, and I'm doing okay because I'll leave 10 minutes for questions, is positive emotion building tools. It's so important. Positive emotions build resilience. They also build resources that when we're in positive emotional states, we tend to get more expansive. This is all based on not only anecdotal experience, but research. And of course, again, I've acknowledged some great women in the positive psychology movement. I'll have to say my friend Barbara Fredrickson has done groundbreaking work in this area, but so many have gone on with it and also gratitude practice. Anything that when you express gratitude, that's Bob Evans started that work. When you do what you're thankful for about your day, many of you know about gratitude practice. It just reinforces noticing what's been good and what's been helpful and what, like that great parking place or that, amazing, um, peach or something, little things, or it could be big things, but gratitude. And if you do it every day, you're building a habit of noticing what you're grateful for that you carry through the day, and that's really good. Noticing beauty is one of my favorite practices I offer, that to stop a few times a day and just notice beauty around you. It could be as simple as a shadow on a wall. Play, be goofy, dance, have fun on a regular basis. And then the last couple things are putting everything on the path. Every little foible is oh no, not another learning experience. Well, it is, and how can you, fold that into who you are and what you do and what you bring. And I'm going to put at the end here, remembering death. And it might sound morose to people, but it was one of the first most important teachings I ever got on my own spiritual journey. Or you could even look at it as a path of self-growth. This doesn't have to be spiritual. It's a reminder that we're only here for a limited time and we don't know when it will end. And that's scary, but it's also an invitation to be here and to let go the stupid stuff that doesn't matter in that big picture, because we're all in this together. We only have a limited time. So let's go, let's make the best of it. And sometimes that's my daily intention that I write down in the morning in my journal. So I'm going to go off sharing because you can get this readily for your purposes. May there be something of use for you. And just take a moment. I'm speaking quickly because there's so much to get in this. As I said to Tori, this could be a course, right? Okay, so bringing it in, taking a moment wherever you are, and extending an embrace to yourself for all you do, for being here, for taking this time, for walking through life. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be safe. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be safe. May all beings be free, have ease, have peace, enjoy. Thank you. So that kind of closes the official practice and presentation part, but I'm opening it now to any questions that people have. Wanted to allow some time for that. I actually managed to do that. So I'm gonna let Tori tell me if any questions, any reflections, any thoughts, anything that comes up from what we've done here in these past 50 minutes.
Erica, while we wait for folks to add their questions and thoughts to the chat, I'll just share for myself. You use so many metaphors that were new to me that I really loved, and what idea of self-compassion as an act of hygiene. That's really gonna stick with me in a way that I hadn't considered before. Um, so can you speak more about how kind of creating a self-compassion routine and the act of maintenance does
I
that
just
for me?
lost a few words of you. You said the active maintenance, and then I didn't hear anything. I don't know what happened, but can you say that? Just how to
Yeah,
get into your life that is a regular.
active
Well,
maintenance and hygiene
mm-hmm.
idea for me. Can you speak more on that?
Right, right. So hygiene, yeah, and I like the hygiene metaphor because it demystifies it and it doesn't make it sound self-indulgent. Like, we take care of ourselves, we feed ourselves, we bathe ourselves, and so we gotta do this stuff, really reinforce it. Well, it's making certain decisions about habits, and I can share my own example from my own experience. Like, no matter what, every day I get up and it doesn't matter where I am. Well, I might not be able to, the first thing I do is make a cup of coffee. Okay. And so this is like that comes before my meditation. So I have a coffee. I get up, I have a coffee, and then I do my practice. And whether you have a sitting practice or there's some other thing you do to service you. So if you're someone who doesn't meditate, even just taking a moment to kind of gather yourself and be calm and kind of settle. And but that I know that if I, even times when I only can do a 5-minute morning practice really quick, even if it's 90, really, really short, it's that time for me. And I know that I will have a better day if I do that. And it's just like, when people talk about, it's hard to start it, but there are a lot of people who have a workout regimen. You can do that too. So, yeah, for me, it's like I get up, I have coffee, I meditate, and then I swim. And sometimes I have to meditate and then teach and then swim. The swim, but I always get that swim in too, because that's also important. And if I can't swim somewhere, I'll go on a walk. So the things that help you, make a priority of it, because it's going to help everything about your life. I can tell the days, when I don't swim, the meditation I almost always am able to get in because I can do that. But sometimes if I don't get my swim in, it's like, so do that. And then also the attention part, notice when you need a break. And if you're not good at that, you can like set your timer for times to look out the window and do nothing, and also to build in fun on a regular basis. Because fun is fun. As the cat in the hat says, fun is fun, but you have to know how. So you got to try it out. And then when you know how, you got to do it. Because that stuff, the humor, is super important to letting go. Reinforcing this sense of, I don't want to suffer. And then having the spaciousness and lightness, because you can get a sense of humor about these aspects of you that surface. Anyway, I could go on for another hour on that one. But does that help a little bit, Tori?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Prioritizing something and keep it tractable, something you can do.
And even when they're brief, I think that's a helpful reminder that it doesn't have to be a lot. It can be brief, and that's enough to make it.
Very brief, because you're visiting it, even if it's several brief little things throughout the day. Oh, I got to go out and sit and feel the sun on my face.
Yeah. I want to bring in a question that came in from the chat. Johnson Quo asked, talking about saying no, what can we do if that someone that needs our help is in a condition that can't wait? For instance, a mother who suffers dementia asking for help constantly on a daily basis.
I know that one. Right. So sometimes in the moment, you can't say no. But maybe there's things that you can say no to in certain situations. So it's more about keeping that perspective that you can't do everything. And that again becomes to the word prioritizing, right? And so there might be certain things, and be careful not to say no to self-compassion, not to say, oh, I have to be here for mom and I can't take care of myself. So then it's, doing what you can to be there, and then taking the time to, even if it's just briefly, service you. And maybe there are some things out there that at that moment you don't have to attend to, that you can let go of, and I I've had these, and can you draw on resources that maybe you're the only person that can do certain things with mom, and that maybe there's someone else that can help out with something else that you have to do because you can't do that because you're with mom. And so thinking about all that ahead of time to put it into play. And so saying no is a relative thing. And it comes from the perspective of being a person who takes on too much, and a lot of helpers are. So essentializing. And it's also about saying yes. So saying no to this so that you can say yes to this. So saying yes to mom and saying yes to you. And realize that you can't be there. You can't say yes to mom if you're saying yes to all these things that you don't have to say yes to. So it's about juggling it and trying to find a balance. And it's a struggle. It's also about not beating yourself up. Like, oh no, I did take too much on and I can't do it. And if that's the case, well, it's because you're trying so hard to be of help, and that's okay. Just put it on the path and go on to the next challenge in this full catastrophe life. So, and I laugh. And because I have to, because it's just a glorious mess that we're in. But there are some beautiful things, and they need to be serviced, lest we forget. Notice beauty, have fun.
Thank you. Okay.
We have
Um,
time for maybe one.
yeah, maybe we have time for one more question. This comes from Michelle Sicklick. They say it's so hard to get started in the moment to meditate and focus only on yourself. Any tips?
Oh, yeah. So you don't have to start by focusing on yourself, but you can start by just doing something for yourself by like, oh, here I am, I'm seated, like going through a practice where you notice, if that's what you mean, like in a meditation to focus on yourself, I'm not sure but that's what I'm answering. If you're seated, just give yourself the benefit, because you made the choice to do it because you thought it might be of benefit to you. So just stop, just stopping and pausing for a moment. And then maybe just reflecting on being seated, feeling grounded, maybe do some spaciousness. And one thing to try, if you would like, and it's funny, I didn't put this meditation on the sheet. I can certainly make it available. That self-compassion meditation we did, where we first did whoever came up, where it's easy to, bring up your sense of kindness and concern and love where it naturally arises. And then just inviting yourself, and you can say everybody, all of us, and you're one of them, right? And realizing that when you're sending this out, this is all coming from your heart, your mind, your intention, letting it land on you, and our minds are capable of so many things that use your inventive imagination to create a scenario. And you don't have to, just try it. It's like someone says, try something new, try this flavor. Maybe you do like Brussels sprouts and you didn't all your life, try it again. Try it. You don't have to wholeheartedly and take it, into account that this will help you. It's sort of like take your vitamins. We know this will help you. So take it, try it. And if there's this great practice, I have 1 minute, I know, but Tsoknyi Rinpoche has this thing called a handshake practice, where, you think of a room in your mind and all this stuff shows up. And you might not want to be like, oh, really loving to all these aspects of yourself. Like Rumi says, oh, entertain them all. Maybe you don't want to entertain them all, but what Tsoknyi Rinpoche says is when this stuff comes up, like this thought, what am I doing here? I don't deserve this. You can give it a handshake, which is sort of like, oh, hi, there you are, that part of me that doesn't think I deserve this. Go sit in the corner. And oh, there you are, the person who says, I don't have time for this right now. And you can go sit in the corner. Oh, there you are, the part of me who wants to do that. Just let them all be there in your room. That helps develop a lightness. It's an acknowledgement of the whole glorious mess that you are. And it's also making space for you to just relax a little bit and be more spacious and accommodating, and reinforce this ability to see what's up and let go when you need to. Thank you, everybody. It's been a real honor to be here with you all. This recording will be available if you'd like to look at it again. And I don't know where that PDF will be. Did you put it up in the chat? Yeah. Thank you. May all beings, a little dedication. May all this work be of benefit to everybody here, to each of you going out in the world. May that benefit ripple out into all the people you have contact with. And we can imagine it going out in all different directions, because we could all use a little of the good stuff. Take care.
Thank you so much, Erika. From my glorious mess to yours. Thank you for being here and holding space for us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, this full catastrophe. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much, Erika. Thank you, Tori, for guiding us through this wonderful space. Wishing you all well. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for thinking of this. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye, Logan. Thanks.